Welcome. In this video, we'll explore the most important ASP NET interview questions and answers. ASP NET is a powerful web framework developed by Microsoft, widely used for building dynamic, secure, and scalable web applications. Whether you're a fresher or an experienced developer, understanding ASP NET's core concepts, features, and best practices is crucial for acing interviews and excelling in your career. Throughout this guide, we'll break down each topic, explain key terms, and provide practical examples to help you grasp the essentials. Let's get started by understanding how ASP NET works and why it's so popular among top tech companies. ASP NET operates as a server-side web framework, processing client requests and generating dynamic web pages. When a user sends a request, the web server, like IIS or Kestrel, passes it to the ASP NET runtime. The framework then executes server-side code, typically written in C# or VBNet, to generate responses in HTML, JSON, or XML. ASP NET follows an event-driven model and integrates tightly with the net ecosystem. Its Model View Controller, MVC, architecture separates data, UI, and user interactions, making applications more manageable. Built-in features like authentication, authorization, caching, and error handling make development efficient and secure. ASP NET stands out due to its robust and versatile features. It extends the NET framework by adding libraries and tools for common web patterns, such as MVC and Razor syntax for templating. High performance and scalability are hallmarks of ASP NET, making it faster than many other web frameworks. Developers can write backend logic in C, create dynamic pages, and integrate with JavaScript frameworks like React or Angular for single-page applications. ASP NET is cross-platform, running on Windows, Linux, macOS, and Docker. Visual Studio provides comprehensive tools for building and deploying ASP NET apps across different operating systems. The Common Language Runtime, or CLR, is the core runtime component of the NET framework. It manages the execution of NET programs, providing a managed environment for running code. The CLR handles code execution, memory management, and garbage collection automatically. It ensures type safety and program reliability, manages threads for concurrent execution, and enables communication between application domains through remoting. Code that targets the CLR is called managed code, while code that doesn't is known as unmanaged code. This distinction is crucial for understanding how NET applications are executed and maintained. ASP NET MVC is a lightweight, highly testable web application framework that divides an application into three main components: model, view, and controller. The model handles all data-related logic and business rules, representing the data that flows between the view and controller. The view manages the UI logic and displays data to the user, while the controller acts as an interface, handling user requests, processing business logic, and returning output to the view. This separation of concerns makes applications easier to maintain, test, and scale. Choosing between ASP NET MVC and ASP NET Web API depends on your application's needs. ASP NET MVC is ideal for building web applications that return both views, UI, and data, making it suitable for server-rendered HTML pages. On the other hand, ASP NET Web API is designed for building HTTP services that return only data, not views, making it perfect for REST-TFL services and APIs. Web API supports content negotiation, allowing responses in formats like JSON or XML, and can be self-hosted for flexible deployment. Server controls in ASP NET are components that allow developers to manipulate UI elements on the server side. These controls are essential for creating dynamic web forms, performing server-side validation, and managing user input programmatically. By leveraging server controls, developers can build interactive and responsive web applications that handle complex user interactions efficiently. The web config file is a configuration file used to manage various settings that define a website's behavior. Stored in XML format, it allows you to configure settings independently from your application code. This file resides in the application's root directory and can be modified without recompiling the application. Common configurations include connection strings, authentication modes, and custom error pages, making a vital part of ASP.NET application management. To compile an ASP.NET program, the .NET framework uses the Roslyn compiler. Roslyn is a modern, open-source compiler developed by Microsoft, supporting C# and VBNet. It provides advanced features like code analysis, refactoring, and real-time feedback, making development faster and more reliable. Understanding the role of Roslyn helps developers appreciate the compilation process and the flexibility it brings to ASP.NET development. ASP.NET is an open-source web framework developed by Microsoft for building dynamic web applications, services, and websites. Since its first release in 2002, ASP.NET has evolved significantly, with ASP NET Core introducing cross-platform capabilities in 2016. Being open source means the framework is actively maintained and improved by both Microsoft and the global developer community, ensuring continuous innovation and support. The global ASAX file, also known as the ASP.NET application file, is an optional file located in the application's root directory. It handles higher-level application events such as application start, application end, session start, and session end. At runtime, global ASAX is parsed and compiled into a .NET Framework class derived from the HTTP application base class. This file cannot be accessed by external users, ensuring the security of your application's event logic. ASP.NET supports four main types of server-side controls: HTML server controls, web server controls, user controls, and validation controls. HTML server controls are standard HTML elements that run on the server. Web server controls are rich, reusable controls provided by ASP.NET. User controls are custom controls created by developers for reuse. Validation controls are built-in controls used to validate user input on the server side. Each type serves a specific purpose in building robust web applications. In ASP.NET, a postback refers to the process of sending a page from the client browser back to the server for processing. This is commonly used when actions require server-side logic, such as validating user credentials. The process is initiated on the client side, but handled by server-side code, enabling the server to update the page, maintain state, and return the processed output to the client. Postback is essential for interactive web applications. ASP.NET uses configuration files to manage application settings. Machine config applies to all ASP.NET applications on a server and is located in the system directory. Web config applies only to a specific web application and resides in the application's root directory. Machine config stores server-wide default settings, while web config stores application-specific settings like database connections and authentication. Changes to web config are applied immediately, whereas machine config changes require application restarts. Grid view and data grid are both data-bound controls in ASP.NET, but they have key differences. Grid view, introduced in ASP.NET 2, supports built-in paging, sorting, updating, and deleting operations, as well as auto-formatting features. Data grid from ASP.NET 1 requires manual handling for sorting and paging, and lacks some of the advanced features of grid view. However, data grid generally offers faster performance compared to grid view. User controls in ASP.NET are created like web forms and use existing controls to define their own logic. They are easy to use but less flexible and cannot be added to the toolbox or run on their own DLL. Custom controls, on the other hand, are created by programmers to extend existing functionality, are more flexible, can be added to the toolbox, and run on their own DLL. However, creating custom controls is more complex. Web server controls in ASP.NET are more powerful than HTML server-side controls. They require the runAt=server attribute, making them available for server-side programming. Each control exposes an object model with properties, methods, and events. Web controls include all basic HTML controls plus additional ones like data grid, data list, and calendar, providing a rich set of tools for building interactive web applications. ASP.NET provides robust login controls that require no program coding. These controls integrate with ASP.NET membership and form authentication to automate user verification. Types include login, login view, login status, login name, password recovery, create user wizard, and change password controls. By default, these controls work in plain text over HTTP, but can be configured for secure authentication in production environments. Validation controls in ASP.NET ensure that user input meets required conditions, such as mandatory fields, value ranges, or specific patterns. The main types are required field validator, compare validator, range validator, regular expression validator, and custom validator. These controls help maintain data integrity and provide immediate feedback to users, improving the overall user experience. The checkbox control creates a checkbox on a web form, allowing users to set a true or false value. Key properties include checked, which indicates if the box is selected, text align for caption position, and text for the checkbox label. Checkbox controls are useful for collecting multiple selections from users, such as eligibility criteria or preferences. HTML server controls are standard HTML elements exposed to the server, allowing server-side manipulation. By adding the runAt=server attribute, these controls can be accessed and modified in server-side code. Examples include HTML form, HTML input text, HTML text area, HTML anchor, HTML button, HTML image, HTML input checkbox, and HTML input radio button. These controls bridge the gap between static HTML and dynamic server-side functionality. LINQ, or Language Integrated Query, was introduced in NET 3.5 and Visual Studio 2008. It allows developers to write queries directly within C# or VBNet to retrieve data from collections, databases, XML files, and more. LINQ provides a consistent query syntax across all data sources, simplifying data access and eliminating the need to learn separate query languages like SQL. ASP NET Core is the open-source, cross-platform version of ASP.NET that runs on Windows, Linux, and macOS. Released in 2016, it supports modern web development with improved performance, scalability, and flexibility. ASP NET Core benefits from open-source development, frequent updates, and community contributions, making it a future-proof choice for web application development. Razor is a view engine in ASP.NET that provides a syntax for developing dynamic web pages using C# and HTML. It enables seamless integration of server-side code with HTML markup, making it easy to render dynamic content. Razor is especially useful for building single-page applications when combined with JavaScript frameworks like React or Angular. Authentication in ASP.NET verifies a user's identity before granting access. The main types are forms authentication, which validates users against a database, passport authentication, which uses Microsoft Passport, now deprecated, Windows authentication, which uses Windows accounts and Active Directory, and custom authentication, where developers implement their own logic. Each method suits different security requirements and application scenarios. A query string is a collection of characters appended to a URL to transfer values between web pages. It's useful for passing small amounts of data, like user IDs or preferences. However, query strings are limited to 255 characters and are visible in the browser's address bar, which can pose security risks if sensitive data is included. Use them for non-sensitive, small data transfers. A web application is a software program accessed through a browser, requiring authentication and dynamic server interaction. It processes user requests and often includes both client-side and server-side scripts. A website, on the other hand, is a collection of related web pages, primarily informational, and may not require authentication. Understanding this distinction helps in choosing the right project type for your needs. ViewState is the method ASP.NET uses to preserve page and control values between round trips. It stores data in a hidden field on the page, allowing the server to maintain state across postbacks. This is especially useful for tracking user inputs and control properties without relying on server-side storage. A cookie is a small piece of information sent from a server to a browser and stored on the client's machine. Cookies are used for authentication, session management, and personalization. In ASP.NET, you can access and manage cookies using the request, cookies and response, cookies properties, making it easy to remember user-specific data across sessions. Web services in ASP.NET are web applications that expose methods for use by other applications. They enable interoperability by allowing different applications to communicate over the web, regardless of platform or language. Web services are used to provide reusable functionality, such as data access or business logic, to multiple clients, making them a key part of modern distributed systems.